Good morning. Welcome to Horizon Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Pam Schumann. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm serving as your worship associate this morning. We're excited to welcome you to our worship service. We're so glad that you have come to be with us today, whether you're joining us in person or virtually, whether you're here for the first time or whether you've been here for longer than you can remember. Here at Horizon, we welcome people of all faiths, or of no faith in particular. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome among us. As a community, we also share joys, sorrows, and concerns. You're welcome to fill out a Joys of Sorrows slip. You're down here and when you came in. They're also in the pockets of the chairs, and you can also light a candle if you choose. And this can be done at any time during the service or before the service, before we get to right at the offertory. I do have a couple of announcements today. You'll see some announcements in your order of service. There's also some flyers in there. The two I'm going to actually highlight today is the one dear to my heart, of course, Horizon Players Show this coming weekend, the 13th and 14th. On the 13th, that's Friday the 13th. Oh, that's a lucky day. And then I understand there's an eclipse on Saturday, and then you can come see the play. Tickets are on sale outside, or you can come and pay at the door. That's fine. It's a wonderful community building. We have a great deal of fun. We have a great deal of fun making it for you. And then the event itself is just wonderful. You'll have some delicious desserts that come with your tickets, or if you don't like desserts, we have other things too. And then the last thing I'd like to remind you about that is at the end of the service, if you could help us by removing all the hymnals, gray and teal, and bring them to the back of the sanctuary. That helps us because we have to turn the sanctuary into a theater after service today. So all the chairs go, and it's easier to do that when the hymnals aren't there. So we appreciate your help with that, and then go have some potluck. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is the trunk or treat, and also the pumpkin patch sale that we are doing as a fundraiser for the church. So kind of some special October things to remind you of. Okay, and now we will have the call to worship.
Our call to worship this morning is from Erica Hewitt, inspired by words from Elizabeth Wynne. To be a Unitarian Universalist means we'll never be done with the work of telling the truth about oppression, the work of resisting any laws or policies or practices that deny anyone their humanity, the work of stubbornly seeking out the spark of the divine within each other, no matter what, the work of creating heaven on earth. To be a Unitarian Universalist also means we're not alone in the work. We are not alone because of our promises to love one another. We are not alone because we are companions on the journey. We grow ourselves into allies, helping one another get free, because none of us is truly free until we all are free.
We light this chalice today as a people dedicated to personal growth. May it burn away the oppressions we have been taught and glow instead with the humility of learning. May it reignite our dreams for a better world and kindle our joy for simple living. May its warmth extend out into the forgotten alleyways of exclusion and bring us home to love, to welcoming, and to all the challenges and questions and blessings of this beautiful path to becoming a beloved community. And now, if you will please join me in our affirmation, which is printed in your order of service and also projected. Love is the doctrine of our church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth. Thus do we covenant together. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in singing our opening hymn, hymn number 168 in the gray hymnal, One More Step.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step, one more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word, one more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer, one more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Now is the time that we have asked you to bring shelf-stable foods and personal care items for MetroCrest. If you have donations today, you may bring them up and put them in our basket, either before or after I tell the story today. Our story today is Fry Bread, a Native American family story. If you wish to come closer to see the pictures in the book, you are more than welcome if you are young or if you are young at heart. Some of them will be projected on the screen behind me. Fry bread. Fry bread is food: flour, salt, water, cornmeal, baking powder, perhaps milk, perhaps sugar, all mixed together in a bowl. Fry bread is shape. Hands mold the dough, flat like a pancake, round like a ball, or puffy like Nana's softest pillow. Wish I had another hand. Fry bread is sound. The skillet clangs on the stove. The fire blazes from below. Drop the dough in the skillet. The bubbles sizzle and pop. Fry bread is color. Golden brown, tan, or yellow. Deep like coffee, sienna, or earth. Light like snow and cream. Warm like rays of sun. Fry bread is flavor. See beans or soup, smell tacos, cheese, and vegetables. Delight in honey and jam. Rise to discover what brings us together. Fry bread is time on weekdays and holidays, supper or dinner, powwows and festivals, moments together with family and with friends. Fry bread is art, sculpture, landscape, portrait, our daily craft, shared from teacher to student, a cycle of heritage and fortune. Fry bread is history, the long walk, the stolen land, strangers in our own world with unknown food. We make new recipes from what we had. Fry bread is place, Alaska, Kansas, all the way to Maine, down to Delaware, on to Georgia, over to Oklahoma, Colorado, and California, cities and lands that we call home. Fry bread is nation. Abenaki, Apache, Arapaho, Ojibwa, Onondaga, Oglala Sioux, Narragansett, Navajo, Nipmuc, Seminole, Shoshone, Sac, and Fox, hundreds and hundreds of Native American tribes. Fry bread is everything: round, flat, large, small, north, south, east, west, brown, yellow, black, white, familiar and foreign, old and new. We come together. Fry bread is us. We are still here, elder and young, friend and neighbor. Fry bread is you. Thank you. Now we are going to sing the young people out.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
We're about to take up today's offering. Church leaders, both volunteers and staff members, work diligently throughout the year to be careful and attentive stewards of the congregation and its funds. Countless meetings, reports, documents, and budgets are necessary to maintain the health of an organization, especially one like Horizon that has endured for over many years. We depend on our tools and on our teams to track where every dollar goes, and they do just that. But the gifts you make to our weekly offering or through your annual pledge represent far more than lines on a spreadsheet. Your contributions are a tangible commitment to the mission and vision of Horizon. Each time you give, you renew this commitment. And as a result, your support is entwined with all that we believe and all that we do here together. This is its own special gift. In the spirit of trust and generosity, we gratefully accept your offering. Thank you, Elliot. That was wonderful. Our first reading today comes from Joy Harjo. Once the world was perfect, and we were happy in that world. Then we took it for granted. Discontent began a small rumble in the earthly mind. Then doubt pushed through with its spiked head. And once doubt ruptured the web, all manner of demon thoughts jumped through. We destroyed the world that we had been given for inspiration and for life. Each stone of jealousy, each stone of fear, greed, envy, and hatred put out the light. No one was without a stone in his or her hand. There we were, right back where we had started. We were bumping into each other in the dark. And now we had no place to live, since we didn't know how to live with each other. Then one of the stumbling ones took pity on another and shared a blanket. A spark of kindness made a light. The light made an opening in the darkness. Everyone worked together to make a ladder. A Wind Clan person climbed out first into the next world. And then the other clans, the children of those clans, their children and their children, all the way through time to now, into this morning light, to you.
When I was a kid, about 10 years old, I was looking at a box of Pop-Tarts one day. And they had an offer for a VHS tape, which some of the younger in the room might not even remember at this point, and that makes me feel very old. But it was for a comedy, a one-night-only comedy routine. And I ordered that tape and watched it over and over and over again until at one time I had practically all the jokes memorized. I rewatched it recently. It's on YouTube now with Calvin by my side, and some of them aren't really as funny when you're not 10. But there was one joke that stood out and continues to be an antidote that I like to quote. And it's from the comedian Paula Poundstone. She said that when she was a kid, her history teacher used to tell her that Christopher Columbus discovered America, but then the same teacher would tell her, well, the Native Americans were already here and the Vikings had come and gone. And she looked at her teacher and said, well, then Christopher Columbus didn't discover America. No, 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 no. He discovered it for Spain. And so she said she lived in terror as a kid, that one day some Spanish person would climb through her window, look at her and say, am I the first one here? Well, no, I'm already here. No, 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 no. Am I the first one here for Spain? And it's easy to laugh at because it's kind of how we tell our history, isn't it? Why does Christopher Columbus matter more than the people who were already here? What stories would this land tell if it could talk? Stories of war and famine, good years and bad years, grief and joy, all long before Christopher Columbus did his thing for Spain. The vast majority of the inhabitants of this land have long been forgotten, swallowed up to the stream of history, which tends to favor the quote-unquote victorious. Not just humans either, but Animals such as dinosaurs and mammoths once lived on this land. I got to talk to Amy Martin after her service a couple of weeks ago, and she reminded me that everywhere we're standing used to be a part of the Appalachians before Continental Divide. So with so much time to cover, how do we decide whose stories need to be told? Trick question, that's not even the right question to ask. I don't want to imply that some stories need to not be told or that we should forget any part of our history. That's a false myth perpetrated by those who want to raise up only the people they like. The question I'd rather ask is, whose stories aren't being told in the standard narratives, and who are being ignored when children learn about the history of the land? In the midst of controversies about critical race theory, which completely misunderstand what critical race theory is, and attempts to erase the narratives of BIPOC in our country, Indigenous activists are finally gaining some recognition in their work. While the First Nations of Canada have been visible in Canadian politics for decades, tribes in the United States have generally been less than successful in gaining support or visibility, other than a few controversies about sports teams' mascots. This is not by accident. The system of white supremacy is built to erase any narratives that do not conform to the dominant story told by European colonialists. This story, the story that enabled Manifest Destiny, generally holds that colonialism brought civilization to the Americas, civilization often being one of those dog whistles that tells you you're about to hear a lot of bullshit. The only people who lived here were supposedly primitives who didn't even know how bad they had it until the Christians came and told them. This meant that governments and churches, all led by powerful white people, came in and upended thousands of years of Native American indigenous civilizations. While things weren't perfect in the Americas, the European narrative, like all invader stories, emphasized anything that wasn't to the standards of the settlers as justification for their actions. And this isn't even to take into account that under the doctrine of Manifest Destiny, God himself approved of the actions of the colonialists because the indigenous people needed to be converted to the right religion and beliefs. And if God was for them, the story goes, who could be against them? I wish that this narrative was a thing of the past. But I woke up this morning to some of the worst vitriol in comments on Facebook I've ever seen about the current situation in Gaza. And I won't repeat all of it except to say that genocide was an option that was suggested. As we sit here today, I wonder how many of you can name the tribes who lived on the land that our church currently inhabits. It's public knowledge. Anyone can look it up by going to native-lands.ca, a database detailing the tribes known to have lived on any address in the world. And according to the site, 4 tribes have inhabited the land that we're on. The Tawakoni, whose land once included the majority of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and north into Oklahoma. The Kickapoo, whose territories once stretched as far as Madison, Wisconsin, as far east as Detroit and as far south as Coahuila, Mexico. The Wichita, who are related to the Talakoni and once lived from the middle of Kansas all the way down to just south of Dallas, and the Humanos, whose land once included the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as well as Austin and San Antonio, and west into the Mexican state of Chihuahua. As you can tell, each of these tribes lived on a massive amount of land, sometimes bigger than some of these European nations who thought themselves superior. And this isn't even all the tribes who lived on North Texas. The Comanches and Kiowas were also known to live in the area that's now part of the Metroplex by the 1700s, and the Cherokee Creek, Seminole, and Waco had presences in the Fort Worth area. And yet, little remains of the history of these people prior to colonization. Preserving their stories was just not a priority of the white settlers. What we do know is that indigenous people were often pawns in conflicts between the United States, the Spanish, and the Mexicans. Thousands of indigenous people died from disease when white people first moved into the North American area, and those not killed by disease faced extermination through battle. I happened to see a meme shared this week that said people who deny all the acts of colonialism don't seem to think about why so many towns start with the word fort. Yes, Fort Worth was established following the Mexican-American War in order to protect white settlements from the natives in the land. Like, what did you think all those cities with the word fort in them were for? Eventually, the remaining indigenous population were forced elsewhere out of North Texas, mostly north to Oklahoma, but also to a lesser degree, south towards Houston or west towards the Mexican border. Colonialism was so successful that despite the fact that this land was once full of people from Native American nations, there is no tribal land here today. The few Native Americans living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area are mostly urban dwellers trying to blend in with the rest of the populace. Make no mistake, colonialism is a long, ugly affair, masking the violent destruction of entire civilizations, all because they were different. Most Native American tribes were relatively peaceful, only taking up arms to defend themselves, and it's hard for me not to be envious of the relationship many of them had with the land they had inhabited for centuries. Indeed, so much native wisdom and knowledge was lost in the quest to take over America for white colonization, knowledge that we may never have the opportunity to replace. In our first reading this morning, Joy Harjo, a Muskogee poet who spent much of her childhood in Oklahoma, speaks of taking the world for granted. Once the world was perfect, she says, and we were happy in that world. Then we took it for granted. Discontent began a small rumble in the earthly mind. This is colonialism. We had the arrogance to come in without knowing about the interconnections between humans and lands in this so-called new world, full of old wisdom. And when I say we, I should specify that that doesn't necessarily apply to everyone in this room. When I say we, I speak of my identity as a white person, which ancestry assures me I have a lot of, and we'll be talking about in a couple of weeks. But humans have been here for thousands of years, New research is suggesting even longer than we once thought. I think it's very easy to trace the beginnings of the climate crisis to this colonial forgetting, this piece of white supremacy. And writers such as Robin Wall Kimmerer have done just that, reminding us that this cultural amnesia enabled us to take the world for granted, in the words of Joy Harjo. But worst of all, it was arrogant enough to assume that the ways of the colonists were the best way. So confident in it were they that it was willing to kill thousands of people and decimate countless civilizations, all because the ancestors of white people today thought they had God on their side. We now take time to honor the sorrows and joys of this community, knowing that we are all interconnected and that what affects one affects us all. We send a joy today, knowing that this is typically a low attendance Sunday because so many people are gone on the women's retreat this weekend. So we send our happiness and thoughts to them. And an anonymous sorrow for all the people in Israel, Palestine, and Gaza. We also light a candle this morning to honor all the joys and sorrows which have gone unspoken and reside only in our hearts. Please join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation in whatever way feels right with these words from Jude Geiger. After the reading, we'll have a space of silence, which will be broken by our responsive hymn, number 391 in the gray hymnal, Voice Still and Small. Spirit of life, gods of many names, source of hope, we come together at the end of another week, some worn down by struggles of health or home or work. May we be a community that makes space for the sharing of joys and sorrows, angers and hopes with grace and forbearance. In our nation's life, we pause this holiday weekend to remember the Native American lives lost from the European colonization on what is now our soil. Teach us to remember history, though we cannot make amends for what has come before. May we learn from those ways, never to repeat them in our lives today. May we develop new ways of relating to neighbor and stranger without violence or coercion or deceit or greed. Mother of grace, help us to find a sense of humility where we have privilege and strength where we face oppression. In our struggles, may we learn compassion, and in our power, may we learn temperance. As a community of faith, may we be a safe harbor in a world that is often harsh towards difference. Challenge us to use our presence as a healing force for injustice and equity, knowing that although we have come far in the civil rights struggles of our times, there are many people still left behind, and the work of building the beloved community is just as pressing as ever before. blessed be.
Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing in dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain singing, calming my fears, quenching my tears through all the years, singing.
Our second reading today comes from Laura Bogle. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, the water we drink, this air we breathe, these old plains that hold us steady to our ground. These forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, these stars that show us our place. The wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it is our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped us. The Tawakani, the Kiakawapu, the Wichita, the Jumanos, the settlers, the slaves, the farmers, the hunters, the immigrants, the artists, the families, the explorers, the business people, the engineers, the builders, the scientists, the teachers, the workers, the leaders. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours.
Test. There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look, it's going down. There's battle line being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look, what's going down? What a field day for heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and carrying signs, mostly say hooray for our side. It
It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia drives deep into your life. It will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, man, come and take you away. We better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. We better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going. We better stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
Despite my family having the Cherokee princess myth within it, that we have some distant ancestor who was a Cherokee princess, I have been able to confirm that that is not true. In fact, as one Native American activist once said, if every white person who thinks they have a Cherokee princess in their lineage actually had a Cherokee princess, the entire Cherokee nation would just be full of princesses. No, my ancestors were not Native Americans. In fact, some of them were the very colonialists who displaced the tribes starting in the 1500s. And even those who came to the States later, who played little to no role in the colonial atrocities, benefited from the horrible actions of those who came before. Today I continue to benefit from the colonialism and the white supremacy of yore that saw people with skin like mine as more worthy of this land than the people who were already here, who enslaved, displaced, and killed those who, for no other reason than the color of their skin, and after the fact attempts at rationalization prove cold comfort to the knowledge that any comfort I hear today was on the backs of people who lived different from the ones who forced them from their lands and their way of life. So how do we wrestle with the colonialism of yore? I don't know. One of the right-wing rationalizations for not doing it you'll often hear is that, well, I didn't do that. Why do you want me to feel guilty? And I don't want you to feel guilty. What I want you to do is take action. Calvin and I had a Zoom date last night and actually watched a news report together on a school that, despite receiving $500,000 of grants from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, has no working fire alarm. No working fire suppression system, dorms that are practically a kindling waiting to happen, all on Navajo land in New Mexico. I don't know, if I'm honest, what the solution is, and I'm not sure anyone truly does. But as Laura Bogle reminds us in our second reading this morning, we inherit the choices of our ancestors. And the choices of our ancestors continue to reverberate today, for good and for ill. We've been talking about heritage this month, and that's the problem with heritage, isn't it? It's easy to appreciate it when it's something I like, but it's a harder pill to swallow when I have to wrestle with the unsavory choices of my ancestors that continue to reverberate to this day. But this Indigenous Peoples Day, I think that's just what we have to do. come to terms with the actions of those who came before us, and find ways to make a better future for those who will come after. But what does this mean for those of us who inherit those choices? And some white people, including many Unitarian Universalist congregations, have begun doing land acknowledgments in their welcome in the last few years at the beginning of worship services and meetings, acknowledging that the land of their church is stolen land and that their congregation benefits from the actions of the colonialists. There's nothing wrong with land acknowledgments. In fact, I think they can be a pretty good idea. The problem comes, as many Native American activists point out, that land acknowledgments by themselves do very little to bring justice to indigenous communities. In fact, in many cases, it can be argued that such acknowledgments are designed to provide comfort to well-meaning people that they're doing something, anything, to make peace with a past that still haunts to this day. What Native American activists say we should do is truly form a relationship with the tribes whose land we inhabit. Now, this is something easier said than done sometimes. When I was in Calgary, our congregation was just down the road from the Metis Nation headquarters, literally a 15-minute walk down the road. So it was relatively easy to develop ties. But North Texas is not home to any Native American tribes today. And some may ask, what can we do when the people who once inhabited this land are gone? Well, one thing, the bare minimum, is I want to challenge us as a congregation today to learn about the people who once inhabited this land. Who were they? What did they believe? What do we know about their lives in North Texas? How did they live? What did they eat? And where do they live today? And when were they displaced from North Texas? When I'm able to recover some of the knowledge of the indigenous nations, I can honor them by making sure it doesn't leave this land. That I can honor the people who came before by learning about them in a respectful way, hopefully from the people themselves. But more than that, I wonder if there are concrete ways to develop relationships with the nations who lived here. What if we could find ways to learn about the issues that face them today as a result of colonial displacement, issues that they are still working through? To hear what they have to say and to support their projects. What would it be like to break centuries of domination by acknowledging that our futures are intertwined? This is what happened in 2016 and 2017, when Unitarian Universalists from around the country came together in South Dakota to support protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline, which threatened to pollute indigenous lands and water and destroy ways of life. But such injustices happen all the time, and few get as much press. And I have to say, just to call out our history a little bit, which you'll also be able to hear about in a few weeks, we have a bad history of feeling good about ourselves and patting ourselves on the back when we do something like the protests at the Dakota Access Pipeline. And then we miss the bigger picture. See also Selma, Alabama. The key is to take leadership from the indigenous people who are some of the most directly harmed by the legacy of colonialism. We can't follow their leadership, though, if we don't have a relationship with them in the first place. In order to reverse our heritage of colonialism, we will need to be willing to risk being in relationship with the descendants of the land that were exploited. It is true that if we are willing to wrestle with the legacy of colonialism, I believe we could then be proud to give a land acknowledgement every week, because there are many, many tribes out there still wondering if there was I the first one here for Spain moment is going to happen again and again and again. And a land acknowledgement could help us acknowledge not only the heritage of the land we're on, but also that we're willing to go a step further, to take action that can make the world a better place for those who come after. I am ready to start doing a land acknowledgement, but what I'm waiting on is to know if we're going to do anything else. Come talk to me if you want to be a part of that. We can't change the actions of the past, but this Indigenous Peoples Day, we can be willing to mobilize our power to make the world better for those who come after. This is my challenge to you. If you do nothing else because of this sermon, go home and read about the Tawakani, the Kickapoo, the Wichita, the Humanos, and any other nations who inhabit the land you live and work on. It's time that Indigenous issues stopped being pushed aside. It's time that we stopped caring only when a sports team needs to be renamed. And it's time to take a good look, because nobody wants to hear those words, am I the first one here for Spain? Indeed, it will only be through healing and changing the injustices of the past that we can create a more just future. May it be so.
We extinguish this flame, but not our commitment to welcome radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. We do this because we envision a beloved community filled with compassion, helping all to thrive in a just world. And now I invite you, as you are able, to rise in body or spirit, to join us in singing our closing hymn, hymn number 1017 in the Teal hymnal, Building a New Way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Our benediction is by Andrea Hawkins Camper. May we see all as it is, and may all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now, to be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace.